Hi, this is Peter Godinez, your ambassador with K80Y TV, and another series of Good Morning Oxnard. And we have the lovely, or the great, elect Stein and his Lawrence, or we call him Larry, the middle initial Paul Stein here, and he is running for mayor of Oxnard. And we have the good pleasure of having his great presence here. And I can tell he is not nervous, so he's done this before. So Larry, welcome to the show. I'm going to extend my hand, we're going to shake hands. And I want to talk, because we had a little calisthenics, and you have some wonderful things to say. But before we get into the real serious stuff, tell us seriously, where did this all start in regards to who you?
Well, about who me is, I was born in Encino.
Encino, of all places.
I'm a Valley boy originally. Spent 20 years in Connecticut when my father was transferred from the West Coast to the East Coast. Came back to the West Coast after my grandfather died to keep an eye on my grandmother once a month and go out to 29 Palms. But I've been out in California here in Oxnard since 1982.
1982?
I reestablished my roots.
That was not that long ago, but then again, I'm getting older in age, so that was relatively not that long ago.
Well, when we talk about aging and old,
a dangerous subject.
Oxnard in the 1960s is completely different than what it is today. I mean, there's a concern about making downtown Oxnard the driving center of commerce, and that kind of thing is gone.
Mm-hmm.
We still need to attract business downtown Oxnard, but Oxnard has built itself out of downtown, and it's now we have establishments along the 101 freeway that drives more commerce. We rerouted Pacific Coast Highway to Port Rice to transfer traffic away from downtown Oxnard. We've done this purposefully.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't see ourselves. We have elected officials can't see what we've done to hurt downtown Oxnard, but that's a little diversion.
It is, and you know, me just getting here in 1981, so you came back from the East Coast, West Coast. So we go back that time, there was only one big tower at the time. The wagon wheel was a hub of activity. The what do you call it? The mall on the right side, the collection wasn't here. It was a field, and then there was just the regular mall there. But now everything's changed now. But did you get here to the West Coast and Oxnard just ready to run, or did you eventually just get the inertia going in 1 or 2 years to actually get into the arena of politics?
Well, what happened was something similar today. We're in a drought.
Okay.
And people being told that we're in a drought. In the early 90s, we were also in a drought. And I got upset when I found out the city was going to spend $1 million plus after being in a drought for 3 years telling people we need to conserve water. I thought that was a waste of money. But to spend $1 million or more to tell us that we're in a drought when people already knew that we were in a drought. So that's cycle.
That fired you up. So when Larry gets upset, I mean, what does he do? Does he take out ropes and start swinging them? Does he take out signs? I mean, how does Larry at the age, I don't know how old you are, we won't talk about age since we talked about other things. But
well, I'm actually 39.
Okay.
I celebrated my 21st anniversary, my 39th birthday last year.
We'll let the other people do the math on that one, but so it was the drought. So what did you do about it?
I started running for city council.
Okay.
I ran for city council back in 1992 to talk about issues that are still current today. Tertiary treatment of wastewater. What's that? Think about the Great Water Program. We're taking the wastewater, treating it, and now making it usable and commercially viable.
Okay.
That's something I talked about back in the early 90s. We had Ben Wong, who was a city engineer, talking about this issue and coming up with plans and ideas to actually execute this. Spending water and spending money to tell us we need to conserve water seemed to be a waste of money. And that's what got me started. So to answer your question, at that point in time, I do research. I ask questions, make public record requests, and try to glean information to come up with facts, and then present that in front of the public via the city council meetings.
So you go to all the city council meetings in 1982. You were showing up.
No, this is 92.
92.
92. I didn't go to
So this is 10 years later then, huh? So you already got your roots growing and you're running full blast now at this point.
I was doing something.
Okay, but you're an attorney by trade, right?
I'm an accountant.
Accountant. Okay, you look like an attorney.
I'm not a CPA.
Okay.
But I'm a licensed, bonded, and agreed accountant.
So you know the attentions to the details, and you do look at those balance sheets, right?
I look at income statements and balance sheets to try and find out where the money's at. Because when people's going out, when the public goes out and asks for money for their individual campaigns or individual issues or foundations, they have to know where the money's at.
So you knew how much they were spending on trying to advertise, hey, we're in a drought then, which a lot of people were thinking.
Well, that's right. They came out and said we're going to spend $1 million plus to tell people they're in a drought back in the early 90s.
That was a lot of money back then. It cost the bread, a loaf of bread, I don't know how much it was. That's what they always kind of the benchmark. But
what's interesting is the fact that we now have the high cost of utility bills, over $100 plus for a small family. And the city set up a program where people contribute to help other people with their funding for the paid utility bills. The problem with that is there's no policies and procedures in place to expend the money. So cities collect up $9,000 in a fund to help people with utility bills, and the city has no policies and procedures in place on how to spend that money. This is 9 months now. No policies and procedures in place, and it's one of the problems I'm concerned about. We need to hold staff accountable to decisions. When staff says we're going to do something, make sure they do it. And a lot of times they don't. It's all talk, then buried after 9 months. So that's one of the issues I'm running on, is to hold staff accountable for the issues.
now, one of the things I'm really famous for saying is, what does that look like? Like, you know, when somebody holds accountable to, you know, being on diet, they're saying, okay, you can't eat that Twinkie, you know, so they grab that Twinkie out of their mouth. What's it look like to keep the senior staff accountable? I mean, what are the behaviors of leadership and then the masses to keep the staff accountable? Give us some examples of
I
that.
think what you don't do is you don't criticize staff in public TV.
Okay.
It needs to be done after the camera's off. You talk to the city manager and say, look, we're not getting appropriate behaviors from these staff members for whatever reason. Things need to change. And if the behaviors don't change, we'd like to take action. So it should be top down. The city council, the city manager, and the city manager resolve the issues appropriately. And the city manager doesn't resolve the issues appropriately, then he can be held to task by the elected officials. There's a top-down structure, the policies and procedures in place. Those policies and procedures need to be enforced and acted upon.
Do you think there's sometimes when you keep people accountable, are the standards set so high they're not going to be able to be measured and they're just being yes people and saying, yeah, of course, absolutely we'll do it, and then you keep them accountable to it and there's no way in heck they're going to actually hit that target? Is there a possibility of that?
I don't think that's it. It's a matter of ethics.
Okay.
I mean, if you say you're going to do something, do it. If you're not going to do it, say so and get on with it. But be honest. Be honest in front of TV. Say you're going to do something and come back and report out. Come back and report out. Just don't bury it. And that's one of the problems. Staff will say we'll do something, and you'll ask to hear of it. There's no follow-up on that.
Right. Now you have the gift of detailed anointing, and I would love to ask you just with your gift, and what's the difference between, there's a fine difference between being honest, being real, and being Pollyannish. I mean, how do you take reality and make it into good news and realize that there are certain limits to what reality we can actually do? How would you do that to really establish yourself as a leader?
Not all news is good news.
Okay.
For example, utility bills are high, but not high enough. We have certain projects that need to be, where money needs to be spent and money's not coming in. For example, we have $30 million to repair bio towers. There's no money for it. At the same time, the great program, we're in a drought, and we can't seem to sell the water. We have capacity selling water, and we can't seem to sell the water in the drought. What does that say about staff when they can't sell water in a drought? Okay. Not all news is good news.
Mm-hmm.
And some news ethical has to be willing to tell the bad news as well as good news. And staff is reluctant to tell you the bad news. Everything is well, fine, and good. And not everything is well, fine, and good. People ask for money, and have people say no sometimes. Politicians love to say yes to everybody. And sometimes you can't.
That's a tough one. Now you covered that one too, because you have extra 3 points, and I have them on a lovely card, which makes my job a lot easier. So, hold the Oxnard City senior staff accountable. But there are two other major ones, and one of them is local labor for local contracts. So why don't you expound on that a little bit, Larry?
Based on city council reports and other activities, our current mayor says we're going to be spending $500 million, that's $500 million in the next 10 years for infrastructure. It isn't that much money, it's only $50 million a year over 10 years. Problem we have is we don't have our contracts in place asking the bidders how much local labor, how much local material will you be using in your contracts. You can't ask or set a dollar amount in contracts saying you have to spend X number of percentage or Y number of percentage in dollars and cents in what you're going to use for local labor for contracts. But you can put in the bid process a commitment from the bidder saying how much will you be spending. And the contract should not be selected necessarily on the lowest bid, but on the best economic benefit.
Let's try to describe that. That's an interesting statement.
So, if we have a contract that comes in, say from Arizona, and is 20% lower than a contract in Oxnard, why can you do that? Well, perhaps it pays lower taxes in Arizona. Perhaps workers' compensation rates are lower. Perhaps the cost of doing business in Arizona is lower. So we bring that cost across the state lines and in Oxnard say we can do it for 20% less. Well, all that payroll is not going to Oxnard. That payroll is not going to leave the community. If we have $10 million of payroll coming into Oxnard and leaves Oxnard, there's no economic benefit to Oxnard.
Interesting.
If we take that $10 million and using local labor, it might cost us 20% more. But that money stays in the community, pays local labor, and that money is spent locally to a small shops and businesses. So that money has a larger economic value by being circulated in the community instead of leaving the community. So we should have contracts in place and evaluation of those contracts, not just bottom line, but the bottom economic cycle. And that actually takes some thinking and planning and analysis that city staff seems to be reluctant to do.
That's a really good point. I mean, a whole lot of people don't talk about that. I mean, other cities within Ventura County have been guilty of that. And it's interesting you would make that one of your top priorities.
Well,
When revenue leaves, that's an issue.
When we see each that took place at community hospital,
Okay.
we have a huge contract in place for building so many stores, and there was labor concerns on how much money would be used in local labor. And that got settled with a labor pact. There's a labor pact in place during the new high school in Camarillo. So labor pacts are important, and it's one way of doing it. That's the only way of doing it. Everybody likes to make union wages. I mean, unions are good. They brought a lot of benefits to it. A lot of companies can't afford to pay union wages, but on government contracts, you have to pay union wages. The fire station at College Park is not a union contract. It is a private contractor coming in from outside the area, coming from LA County, and building the structure and leasing back to the city. This way, they're going around the labor laws of government contract, because it's not a government contract to build a fire station, but a private contract. So there are ways of going around the laws legally, and not necessarily the best benefit to the community at large. Now, to their effort, they've made great strides in attracting local labor, and we have a large percent of local labor working on construction of the fire station at College Park. But again, the issue here is local labor for local jobs, and this particular project is using local labor for local jobs. And that's just an example where it can be done successfully.
I think that's a really good platform to do it. But let's talk about the third one too, and that's be proactive, not reactive. Meditate social issues before they become mediate. See, I can't read.
There you go.
I wasn't a very smart student in high school, but social issues before they become criminal issues. I think you touched upon that, but expand that. It's more of the be proactive versus reactive, which was how we started with the water. Let's not react. Let's be proactive to prevent it from happening.
Well, let's look what's happening throughout the nation and in Oxnard as well. We have a situation in Missouri right now where a person got shot, and we see a lot of reaction, a lot of negative reaction. and concerns about police brutality. In the same situation in Oxnard, the Malone case, where somebody was shot. Some people say a justified shooting. Some people say this guy was an innocent bystander, and the stories are mixed and well documented. But it's costing the city of Oxnard $7 million. Okay. We have a large number of domestic violence issues. When a police officer goes out to handle a domestic violence issue, his life is at risk. That's one of the most violent and unpredictable situations a police officer can walk into. And sometimes a police officer has very little choice in what he can do. We start interacting with social workers. We hire social workers through the city to work with the police department so we can turn some of these situations around, so that we can mediate a domestic violence case and have an in-house social worker help work with that family so the police doesn't have to come out as often. Perhaps address these social issues. Oxnard is number one in the state in DUIs. We're number one. Isn't that great that we're number one in something in California and number one in DUIs? The city wants to continue issuing beer and wine licenses while we're still number one. Well, DUIs isn't the issue, it's drug and alcohol abuse. Drug and alcohol abuse is a major cause for services by the police department. Domestic violence, fighting, gang interaction, all related to alcohol and drug abuse. Again, if we have social workers involved and work with the police department so we mediate and resolve these drug abuse issues, it might reduce the calls for service and making our police officers more effective in doing what they do so well. Let's talk about homelessness, because that's also a longest issue here. We have a lot of people who are homeless because they've lost their homes. We have another group of people who are homelessness because of mental health issues. We have a third group of people who are homeless because they want to be that way. Leave me alone. I don't want to live in a confined society. So how do we address this? Again, we can start being proactive. And we have a large number of people in the community being proactive. We have Commission on Homelessness. We're trying to address this issue, and they're trying to resolve these issues without using the criminal court system. The criminal court system is the last resort in dealing with issues, and it's the most expensive resort. It costs $50,000 plus, give or take $5,000 among friends, to have someone incarcerated in jail for a year. We can spend a lot less money and resolve the issues by resolving the social issues and try that approach. The current approach has been used for 30 years. Let's try something different. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but we have to have new ideas, which is why I'm running for mayor. I think we have a lot of opportunities to change the way we're doing things, and our current city council has not taken a proactive approach in addressing many of these issues.
Now, last real quick question and quick answer. Do you have an idea of how many votes the last mayor actually incurred to win the title of mayor? Do you happen to know that?
It's somewhere between 12,000 and 13,000, only 2 people ran.
Okay, and then so as Bob Allen, the founder and executive producer, knows, we are supporting everybody who comes in here. We're non-biased, just trying to get the best out of everybody. But if you were to look in the camera and say that you need 13,000 votes, who would be that profile of people that you're looking for and trying to reach out to get 13,001 votes? Just real quick.
The 12,000 people voted for me for city clerk is the base.
The base?
It's the base. I got 12,000 people voted for me last time I ran.
Okay.
So that's the size of the base. Unfortunately, I didn't run against either Brian McDonald nor Mayor Tim Flynn. So it's going to take some efforts. So it's going to be grassroots campaigning, signs, and going door to door, talking to people, and making appearances and getting endorsements, such as appearances like tonight, like today.
Excellent. Well, much success. Godspeed to you.
Vote early and vote often.
This is Peter Godinez, your ambassador. Again, with Meet the Candidate, but Good Morning Oxnard. Signing off here. Until next time.